I don't want to switch my thought process just because the Grizzlies ended up drafting Zach Edey.
Okay.
I see a lot going on right now. I think there's some groupthink going on with Zach Edey, but it's not a bad thing because everybody sort of talked themselves into it.
Right.
But I mean,
would you have taken anybody else there? Is there anybody else there that you
Dalton Connect would be the only other one that I look at. But
I don't think he was
then
there.
I saw how Tennessee fans reacted, and I'm like,
you're right.
Dalton was there till 15.
17.
Hey, I don't want to get into Tennessee fan stuff just yet. We're gonna do that in a second, right? Like we're gonna do that in a second.
But I thought leading up to pick number 9, I like 6 and 7 when those hit the board, and Clinton was still there. I thought that they still were going to try to trade up for him.
Yeah.
But that's not how it worked out. They probably couldn't find a willing partner at 6 or 7. So they said, screw it. Let's take the next best big on the board.
Yep.
Who's the 7'4", 300-pound behemoth. And I want people to understand, like, I like Zach Edey, and I think he does a lot of things well that the Grizzlies need. When we talk about 2 non-negotiables that he'll be good at, and 2 things that the Grizzlies need immediately out of their big, he can rebound his ass off and he can set screens better than anybody in the country. He did that last year. Now, I don't want people to lose sight of who he was as a prospect. One of the most polarizing prospects we've seen in a long time. Although he was accomplished, even after his 3rd season when he won Naismith Player of the Year, he was getting at best late 2nd round sort of grades, you know? And it's a testament to him and his work ethic that he continued to raise his stock and he became sort of a lottery pick in this draft. Maybe that has to do with the draft as a whole and where it was at talent-wise. Maybe that has to do with a little politicking, and like Jonathan Gavoni threw him in there and he was hearing things from around the league. But ultimately, I'm fine with the pick. I think it makes sense. I think he's going to be slid in there as a starting center next to Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he lets Jaren go roam. I think he could be a very valuable rim protector. I think he can finish around the rim better than a lot of players we've seen at the center position for the Grizzlies, certainly better than Steven Adams. I think he can grow into being a capable passer. But the 2 things that just make me okay with this pick, he will get 12 rebounds per game if he plays the requisite amount of minutes. Right. And I'm telling you, he will be probably one of the best pick and roll men or screen setting big men in the league from day one. I mean, he will peel off every defender from Ja Morant that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. And then not even that.
Even if the pick and roll goes bad and they have to switch, right, and they pick up, could you imagine like a 6'5" defender at most on Zach Edey? Right. You dump it in there and immediately tell him go to his baby hook. Put that in there. Put
2 points. It's an automatic 2 points.
That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, the shortcomings come in on the defensive end and his foot speed. But I think, when we watch Steven Adams was in drop coverage all the time. He wasn't good at that.
Right.
I think there's some people, which I don't get this. There's 2 things I don't get. Oh, well, he's not going to be able to keep up with Ja Morant on the fast break. Neither can Donovan Clingan. Neither can Steven Adams. Neither can Jonas. No one can keep up with Ja. Desmond Bain can't even keep up with friggin' Ja Morant.
What are we talking about?
Then the other thing that really kind of throws me off, because it just shows that you are completely ignorant on the subject. Oh, well, he needs to get into shape. Well, it's like, okay, yeah, he's 7'4", 300 pounds. If you go look back at his time at Purdue, he ran a 5:51 mile. He also played 32 of 40 possible minutes per game last year at Purdue. He is one of the most in shape 7'4" men in the history of the game.
Yeah.
If you just watch, it's not like he was low usage.
No.
He had to run up and down the floor, and he had to catch the ball, and he had to go to work in the post constantly.
Yeah.
And he rebounded his ass off, and he set screens, and he rolled. It's not like he was playing 32 minutes a game, but he was the last one up the floor, and he didn't do anything on the offensive end. He was the most high usage guy in the country, damn near, and still played 32 minutes a game easily.
Yeah. He has shortcomings, right?
Sure.
Like we know he has shortcomings, but he does a lot of things really well that the Grizzlies need someone to do really well. And I think you mentioned a lot of those things pretty perfectly, Gabe. I'll ask y'all something real quick though, because I think the answer is pretty obvious, but just for debate, since Kel'el Ware went, I think 2 picks after Zach Edey.
No, he went 6. He went 15.
Oh, he's 15. Would you take Zach Edey over Kel'el Ware?
In the Grizzlies circumstance, yes.
Yeah. If you're the Grizzlies.
Yes, because Edey rebounds better and he screens better by probably, tenfold.
Yeah.
Hello, Ware's not a good screener. And if it would defeat the purpose of going and getting a big in the first round if you couldn't find a capable screener for Ja and Dez. It would defeat the purpose of getting a big.
Yeah.
So for those reasons, and I think Zach Edey's who he needs to be, and it fits the timeline a little bit better.
Yeah. I've seen some people bring that up, and I was kind of like, if you're just looking at it in terms of prospects, maybe, but as far as team fit, I think it makes it much easier.
The big argument with Zach is you overdrafted him, having him as a top 10 pick. That's the biggest argument you can look into.
If you had taken him at 14, you'd have been fine with it. That's what everybody said. But
then how the hell are you? You have to find someone who's willing to do that with you.
Like, come on.
What are you getting out of that in this draft?
Nothing. You're getting nothing.
What's the difference between 9 and 17 when Dalton Connect got taken? Not that freaking much.
I've said this from the very beginning of this whole draft process is the Grizzlies need to pay attention to, they're not drafting for someone in this draft to be a massive linchpin in the success of their team. They are looking to fill the needs around Ja, Jaren, and Desmond.
Absolutely.
And you take a look at what those guys need to succeed. The last time that Jaren Jackson Jr. had a big that played drop coverage with him, he was Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
You look at Ja Morant being one of the most dynamic pick and roll point guards in the entire game. You get a guy who can set screens on the sun in Zach Edey. You get a guy and you also get a guy who, think about it in this sense, the guys that were drafted in that lottery, how many of those guys will absolutely be on opposing teams' game plans? Like, what you have to do something to them in order to stop them in their offense. You have to stop Zach Edey. You have to tag somebody off the corner, man.
Somebody has to be on the floor to deal with Zach Edey.
He is rolling towards the basket. If they set a screen and that guard can't get over that screen or under that screen, which most likely they can't because he's 7'4" and freaking 300 pounds, you're going to have to switch. Well, then he rolls the basket. You got to have somebody to tag him, right? Well, then you leave a guy wide open in the corner with Luke, with Desmond, with whoever it may be. You're talking about a guy you have to actively game plan against. How many guys can we say that in the first round of this draft?
You can small ball him off the floor, but guess what? The Timberwolves did that to Steven Adams 2 years ago in the freaking playoffs when the Grizzlies won that series in 6 games.
And I've seen people say this about the Dallas Mavericks this year. Well, they did that exact thing to Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert is not the offensive player that Zach Edey is. That's what. So when I say what Rudy Gobert does really, really well is play defense, right? But if he is getting schemed defensively off the floor, he's offering you nothing on the offensive side of the floor. Zach is different. Zach can be that. He can be something on the offensive side of the floor.
Sure. Yes. He's a better finisher. He's one of the 100%. On volume, probably the best finisher in damn near NCAA history, besides going back to the 80s and 70s.
It's crazy.
When guys were just nuts and playing center at the highest of levels, like the Kareem, Lou Alcindors of the world, right. But he was really up there in that type of category. He's a 2-time Naismith National Player of the Year. The one thing I'll say to that, though, Kenny, the Rudy Gobert thing you did, which I'm not going to completely nullify it. That's not what I'm doing. But his offensive ability is going to be it's going to go from here to about here.
Because you don't need it to be, right?
He's not going to play like he did at Purdue. He's not going to get many touches. Yeah. I just think when he does get those touches, you feel confident that he can put 100%. It in the damn rim. That's what you're saying.
He's an option, right?
That's the other, somewhat drawback about him. But because of who he is as a worker and how hard he has worked to get where he's at, I don't worry about it as much. But morphing his game to fit into the NBA is going to be a theoretical challenge.
So
slow pace, dump it into the blender, go work Zach, have 20 shots a game versus what he's going to do in the NBA where he'll get 6 shots, 5 shots a game on 18 to 25 minutes. It's going to be faster paced. They'll get up and down the floor. That part of it, I just want to see how he reacts to it. But I don't think he'll react in a bad way because I think that he is as Grizzlies of a guy as I can imagine. Very highly productive, 22-year-old,
right.
Who you just feel like will do whatever he can to get himself to the point where he can fit perfectly with this Grizzlies team, because he did it at Purdue year after year. He started as a 8.4 rebound guy, ended as a 25.12 rebound guy.
High usage.
And you just see him add something to his bag every offseason, and I don't think that's going to stop just because he gets to the NBA.
Two last little topics I want to discuss on Zach. Christian and I have covered high school sports and college and Memphis Tigers stuff for a long time. Trey Draper, a good friend of ours who used to coach at
IMG.
It was an assistant coach at IMG. We saw Zach when he was at IMG. And is it not crazy, Christian, do you remember Zach in high school when he was playing, how big he was, but how, like, I honestly was like, who is this kid? And he's never going to amount. Like, this guy's just a
little, he was gangly, probably.
Gangly, like little bitty dude. He has played ball. I actually got a chance to talk to Sean McAloon, the head coach at IMG, for the Anthony Sane show. And we were talking about that. He said, man, he goes, Zach is the best receipt keeper I've ever seen in my entire life. He says, I guarantee you, if you were to ask him right now about IMG and me, he would tell you that he holds a massive chip on his shoulder because of the way that I coached him. And he said, and I've used that to like get better as a coach, to kind of like figure out guys, like figure out how to play these guys better. And he said, but look at the growth and the maturity in his body over the last 6 years. He's played ball for 6 years, and you see his body now compared to what it was just literally 4 years ago. It is unbelievable, the transformation.
Yeah, 100%. Like he was not someone that was on anybody's radar in high school. Right. And the only reason he was on a radar was because he was massive. Like that was the only thing that he had going for him, was his size. No one in the whole entire world would have ever believed that he would be a lottery pick or would be a 2-time player of the year at the collegiate level. None of those, there was no obvious signs or even remotely obvious signs that was going to happen. And kind of like Gabe's point too, I think that's just a testament to his work ethic and the time, that no telling how many hours he's put in to develop his game and to be what he is now. Like, no, he's not the most polished prospect in the world. Yes, he has his shortcomings, but the fact that he made it to this point, I think it tells you all you need to know about who he is behind closed doors. Like when nobody else is in the gym, I would imagine he worked his butt off to get to the point where he's at now.
So it seems like a lot of Grizzlies fans are pretty excited. After Zach came and did his press conference, his introductory press conference, reports came out that he was not going to play for Team Canada in the USA or in the Olympics. He's going to come and play summer camp or summer league. Is that a good thing? Like, is that a good thing for Zach and for the Grizzlies?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be a bad thing. There's going to be a transition period for him, and he's got to hit the ground running to do that. I was actually happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.